So, Kumar, Lipok, I mean, a lot of us in No Place Left are learning a lot from you guys and are very encouraged by the stories of what God's done through you. But I know I've been wondering what's on your heart right now for No Place Left, and do you have anything you'd like to share with us from the heart that would be encouraging?
Well, the thing that is in our heart is that we lose sleep over this big vision. As a human being, we lose sleep in how to get this work done.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I and both of us, we talk a lot and say we have to remind ourselves that this is a God-sized vision, that only He can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, in spite of all the things that, the strategy, the plans that come into play to get the job done, we have to be more dependent on God. And it's going to be Him who's going to get this done. And we are just a part of the story where God uses us. So we lose sleep over this, humanly speaking, in how do we get the word out to all the people groups. We are becoming more conscious of the people groups that have not heard the gospel. These are like, we put that in the UUPG category. Now we are becoming very conscious as Indians about this people group. At one time, we were all people group blind because we would generalize it into states.
Right.
But now we are becoming very people group conscious and trying to see where's the gap.
Yeah.
And when we talk in relationship with the scripture, Matthew 24:14, then that's when the no place left, and these two scripture passages need to tie in, where all the people groups in India and in South Asia needs to hear the message of Jesus Christ. That does not put us to sleep.
As my older brother has already clearly said the things, and I do agree. We want to see all people's groups to be reached, and we can always see more UUPG groups are coming in, because within the UUPG groups there are also subcasts, so different categories are coming up. So a lot of challenges that we are seeing. I feel that every year we see more people groups are coming up according to the category guys, and I do agree, because Revelation 7:9 it clearly says, let all nations, all languages, all tribes and all tongues. So every tongue sounds differently, so it defines as a UUPG groups. And so working according to me, I work so generally, and I allow God to see that UUPG groups when we see the churches. So first 5-6 years, people were talking about UUPG groups, and it was so confusing for me. But I said, no, all people need to be into the kingdom of God. So I just worked and trained. And later, when I asked them their surname and title, I found out 127 UUPG. I never go for UUPG, but God gave me UUPG.
That's when we broadly saw.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when we see and identify these people
Yes,
groups.
Right.
So I would say that we should be more in a God dependency instead of man dependency, or relying on our own strategy. Let us rely with God's plan. God will help us to show all these UUPG groups reached. And our only concern is when people come in, you come in with open mind. We were already discussing about open mind, so that God's plan can work in our life. And I can see that many of the NPL guys that have been raising up in US too, they're coming and they're doing really great work so far. And I know if you come with an open mind, God will use more.
So I'm hearing you guys say you have a real heart for these UPGs. Can you share a quick story of God using a macro strategy where you're sharing the gospel broadly to reach an unreached people group?
Well, the role, let's start off with the role.
Cool.
Because we spend a lot of time in the field and less time research. If we were like in that position of doing research, we would not have been doing church planting. God has given us different giftings. There are some people who are gifted in the research role, who it's quite academic in fact. They read a lot of books and they discover these people groups. So when they give us this data, like an outsider giving us this data, that these people groups are there, and these people groups have this percentage of the evangelical Christians, then we kind of understand, okay, now where have we been putting all our strategy and our time? And then now that we've got a new research team that is coming and giving us a new data of the UUPG, then we didn't spend our time doing any research. You got a ready-made material, you got all the people groups in play, you have where they live, the state, the district, and now for us it's just to pray and say, God, lead us to these people groups. We started to pray, in fact. When we went down to Mumbai and we started to pray, and that same month that I went to Mumbai, I attended a FTD conference. There was much takeaway from that, so we came back and prayed as a team. And now as a team, they began to be more people group conscious. When I gave them the UUPG list, they said, we have this believer, this people group in our congregation. So you already have now, that could be the person of peace. Immediately we challenge him, why don't you lead us to your people? Where do they live? And that's when like we kind of go straight to the person of peace strategy, Luke 10. This is already a guy who God has already ordained. Or if we don't have any believer among the UUPG list, but we know from research that they live in this district, in this block, in this village, then we go into that village now. That's how in Mumbai we started targeting. We didn't know that we were reaching out UUPG group.
Wow.
It's the Thakur people group. No known believers there. But immediately once we saw that, okay, this Thakur people group has no church, no believers, but we know where they live, then we brought our team back and say, this is the exact field where we have to apply all the things that we learned in the 4 fields training. It's a going as an outsider, prayer walking, and starting to share the gospel, finding the person of peace. Today we have already around 6 baptisms among these people group.
Cool.
Yeah. So that and they were living just near us. But until we got the research, we were still blind.
Yeah.
We didn't know about that. And so the outsider's role was to give us that research data to us. And we were able to get that information and pray about it. And God immediately led us to that people group, and today 6 baptisms.
Mine was like for the 4 months when we had a training and we were equipping our emerging MTs in South. It was in a building, a church newly built. We hired that, and then I saw a little bit of thatch house, little far distance when I was walking, and I said, "Who are these people? They are living here." And they said, "These are hunters groups." So I was saying, "Really? Even in Tamil Nadu there is a hunters group?" and then why not we share with them? Then they said, okay, let's go and share. And it was hard because their language was quite different from Tamil. But one of the guy among the veterans, he knows Tamil because he goes to the school, so he knows Tamil. So we did the translation and then we shared. And out of 10 people, just 2 people believed. But then we came back and I said, they are very receptive. So why not we share the Gospels? So we cast the visions, and even EMTs, they started casting, and they asked, like, where are your groups? They said, we have there, wherever the mountains are, wherever the jungles are. So they were going and witnessing, and that at that time, Jeff Sandell came and said, since you are going to the south, we heard that there is a people group which is UUPG, and they are Vetakaran. And I'm hearing for the first time what is Vetakaran. Then they said, Vetakaran means is a hunter. Then I asked my Tamil people, Veta means is jungle, Karan is a people, so jungle people, hunter people, they hunt. So I said, well, we have people, during my time we reached 2 people, and they have people who is working. So we plan of doing training with them together, Jeff, my mentor, and then E3, Mike Jorgensen, and Jonathan Dobbs. They decided to come. By the time, in 4 months' time, they witnessed nearly 128 and baptized believers. We count baptized. We never count if they raise their hands for belief. So 128 were there, and we brought them to a hall, and together we trained. So in August 2016, and then I constantly went every month coaching these guys. It was really, really hard, I know, but I know what it will take after 5 years if I coach regularly. So constantly I was going Tamil Nadu. I had a lot of people saying, why you are considering only Tamil Nadu. But it's not about other people, it's about the UUPG groups. I want to see someone emerging L4 leader among the UUPG groups. According to me, engage means...
And by L4, you mean someone who can train others.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want that UUPG groups to take the lead in training their own group. Our goal was to raise up 4 L4 leaders. So we trained them. It was hard, but I was going constantly to South India to reaching out these people. And we saw now in 2 years of time, 300 plus churches, and we have baptized nearly 4,000 people. And we have 7 key guys who are now emerging to L4 leaders. So,
and can you, for those of us who aren't familiar with L4, can you explain?
Yeah, L4 is the guy who quits his job. He quits all his job. He has his streams of 4 Gen, and then now he picking up, going to the other places where hunters groups are. They are total of 0.2 millions. It's 2 lakh we call. It's like 200,000 people. Yeah. So now he's moving to another places and doing the training. And it's so encouragement because God put in my heart to raise up the local leaders. And the UUPG were like Vitakaran, we said. So reach out to them and equip them, establish a training team so that they can take the lead. So I will say that E3, according to me, is like equip, establish, it's an evangelize. So 3 things are coming here. We evangelize, then we equip them, now they are established. And now we give training funds to them, and they are training the other flocks. And it's taking the lead, and it's so encouraging to see that. So I will take personally, when it comes to UUPG engage, I want somebody to take the lead, and so it is been engaged, so they can take the lead. That's how I put it.
That's good.
Well, 4 years back, we had the first church planted among the Mok tribe in the state of Tripura. first believers in this planet. We had a Buddhist monk who was sent from Burma to evangelize the Chakma people group as a missionary Buddhist. So through him, we saw a lot of engagement among the Chakma tribe. I did not know he belonged to a different people group. All my years of engaging the Chakma people, I thought that Simon belonged to the Chakma people group. After around 4 years of deep relationship with him, I began to understand his real identity. So then I realized that he belonged to a tribe called the Mok tribe. He was a monk by profession before Christ, and he belonged to the Mok tribe. And when we looked into the research data, like Joshua Project, there were no known believers among the Mok tribe. They're all Buddhist. You have 50,000 population in India. They are known as the Mok, M-O-G-H. And then in Burma, it's the same people group, but because of its geographic difference, they're known as Rakhine. And in Bangladesh, same people group, same language, little bit of change in the accent, they're known as Marma. So we sent Simon back to engage his people group. They really prayed. He and his wife prayed 2 years. While they were still praying for the Mok tribe, they saw no fruit. Then, after around 2 years of praying, they were already seeing some churches being planted among the Riang and the Chakma people in Tripura. Then in 2014, the first believers. They literally, it took, God worked a miracle in their life. And the first believers, the whole village accepted Jesus Christ. They tore down their monastery, and with the tin roofs of the monastery, they rebuilt a church from the monastery. That means the whole monastery was like empty now. They took the idols from the village monastery, and they took the idols back to another village where they were willing to receive the idols. They did not want to destroy it because that would create communal tension. But when they heard the truth, now they believed in the true living God. So now they had a problem with the idols. So they called up the next village, and there was an elder couple who said they were willing to receive the idols from this village. So Simon and the new believers hired a small truck, played Christian music, put the idols there, and they drove to the next village. And as they went to give the idols to the older couple, Simon used the idol as an entry strategy to talk about the true living God now.
Wow.
And so this couple who were willing to receive this set of idols from the next village now believed in Jesus. So they have a problem with two sets of idols because they had their own and they had just received another. So with much prayer we said, okay, the idols have no power, so you can keep that in the monastery. So that's happened in the month of September 2014. Today, the church that was first started is now self-evangelizing. It's self-supporting in many areas because they cultivate rubber. The Mok people are farmers. They support their own pastor. They are self-feeding. Now they can read the word themselves. They have since they have been mixed, like Tripura is a Bangla-speaking place, whereas the Mok have their roots to Burma. So one old missionary had left a Bible with them, with an older man, and they had never looked into the Bible. And now they took out the Bible, and through that Bible they are feeding themselves. So today, 2018, we have been able to take this people group out of that list of that UUPG, and they're still in the UPG, but they're engaged now because they have fulfilled the criteria of these four selves. They're self-evangelizing, they're self-supporting, they're self-governing, and they're self-feeding now. Well, the No Place Left guys from the US, like, great that today we are all speaking the same language. So that's what God has done, where a lot of prayer has come in, a lot of cross-pollination, and the same mentors that we had in South Asia are also mentoring the same people back there in the No Place Left. That's what has brought us to speak the same universal language today. And then again, God has captured the heart of the Americans. That's the big deal. And so we share the same vision. Now to come cross-culturally to India, to a place like South Asia, to come cross-culturally, would be like anytime an American comes to a place like South Asia or to a city like India, to Mumbai, God can use even just the color of your skin to engage in gospel conversations where we would never be able to do it. And UUPGs are in the UUPG list because it's hard. Somehow it's difficult to start conversations, or it's difficult for us as Indians to get into these people groups. But like, it's the Indianness where when they see a foreigner, they're open to talk. So even a team, like when we are being very intentional about when we do prayer walks, when we go out doing Luke 10, if we are very intentional and if we know where our target is, where the people group lives, God could use that moment to even spark a gospel conversation time, where God could use us to open up a people group that are like resistant to the gospel. And then we could have that person of peace already being identified through that gospel part. So that's how an American who comes from the NPL team could be used most effectively.
On a short-term basis.
Yeah.
What if someone wants to come long-term? What would that be like?
Long term would be to come and be able to adapt the people group maybe and say, how can I spend 3 years of my time, or as long as God puts me in the field, how can I spend my time strategically engaging this people group in trying to raise up the trainers, the L force, so that the day when you have to leave, the work continues. So I think long term, with a lot of research already available to us, coming and saying that, okay, how can I intentionally be able to walk side by side with Indian brothers to really allow them to focus on the finishing the task part. Finishing the task means how can we engage the UUPG groups and be able to give them an awareness of, hey, we are being quite people group blind, because some years back Kumar and we would say these are from Nagaland or these are from Bihar or Uttar Pradesh. We never talked about people group. Today there's a huge awareness now where we are beginning to talk about people groups. And when a long-term partner comes into the field and becomes brings in all the research and data and be able to spend his time targeting these people groups, that will be the best use of their time.
I would say that the challenge is always with the business people to leave the work and come over here and do the work. So I believe that they can adapt some kind of people groups who are most having the priority list, where most number of populations are. So they can adapt and they can help our national brothers to go and reach out to these people and train and equip and engage someone like a training team, and that can take a lead. That will going to be a great help. I believe that it's going to be playing a part of a team. The business guys can play a very good as a member of the team by sowing their seed in helping the nationals to trade. That will be one good things that they can do it. And second thing is they can also pray and see what God is speaking in their hearts to touch the UUPG groups. And the Great Commission is not just you go. It's about what is there that it can go from your side. Is it your heart that goes through prayer? Do please pray. If you say your money can go, please give it and see that you be touched. If you can go, please go. Like you see in which aspect that you can do it. What is possible? I would encourage all the businessmen that they are very hard in working and they can do that. I have one friend who is a business guy. He blindly, he prayed and he just sowed the seed. And in 2 years of time, he could clear all his debt, loan. And plus, he has started 3 companies. And he always says, Kumar, like it was not a mistake to choose one UUPG groups to fund the training. And today, because of this, I've got 3 companies. And I want to take 3 UUPG groups now. So something like that, I don't know what is the measure that God is going to bless those who are business guys who wants to invest. But I strongly believe that God has been blessed so many businessmen by sowing the seed on the field. And some business guys, they come, they also help our nationals, like how to do business in order to be self-supported. But that is also one good idea. They can make a plan of coming and a seed money give to them and be a self-support. That is also one good way of raising up leaders to be self-supported. And once they are self-supported, then the ministry is going to sustain.
The other way of how can we best use of our resources? We're talking about entry strategy. Not everywhere can we do Luke 10. Sometimes we have to be creative in how to do an entry. Starting micro businesses can be an entry strategy. Supposing you go out to help a community with a business guy who has a vision to help this community, saying, how can we go into a village and start a ring well? If they're struggling with water, you make a ring well and the village begins to get good, healthy drinking water, right? That allows us to, again, begin relationships with that community. It's a UUPG group because it's hard soil. It's difficult to reach them. And such kind of entry strategies where business people who wants to come in say, how can I be able to help? Or start a small micro business where through business you can be able to get into field 2 and 3 to start sharing the gospel. So when you talk about business, it's one thing to help the church planter, the L4 guy, to start a business, to become self-supporting so that he can reach. That's one way of doing business. Another way of doing it is killing 2 birds with 1 stone, right? You're also injecting funds into a community where you're starting a small micro business, and through that you're getting an entry to get to field 2 and 3. So that's another way of really doing business creatively. Not all fields would have those same opportunities. But
I will agree with Brother Lipok here, because in Assam, one of our pastor, who is not a church planter in fact, but he has sent a couple of his believers on the field to do the work. but he was not being able to see that much of fruits. But he was kept on asking, ring well, ring well. So I don't know, but one day God spoke to me. So we didn't get a ring well, but we get the tube well, where a hand pump we say.
Okay.
And then he said, let's name it Jesus well. I said, okay, it's up to you. I don't care.
Yeah.
So he wrote it that, and that water was so good, and all the surrounding areas, they wanted to have water. Earlier, they were persecuting these pastors, But now, after building this, now they are making relationship with the pastors. And he said it never happened. In 1 year, he baptized 36 people. It never happened, it seems. He was getting a challenge even to get into the community.
Yeah.
But since being 4 or 5 families, they just gathered and they were having it. Now they have 36 added to this because of that tube well. So it does help in many ways for entry. I totally agree. For making an entry, these are one of the ways. I feel that even Jesus in a Samaritan well, he was sitting down there,
Yeah.
And the Samaritan woman came, and it speaks loud enough, So sometimes the bridges are being built for us to get relationships. Our own local people have a lot of challenges in having a field one. But then your one thing we have heard about skin, the color of your skin, also one that gives the entry. Ring well is also one kind of entry. Community development, even medical. These are all entry strategy. And of course our guys, they know field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4. But if you don't get field 1, the rest of the 3 field has got nothing to do with it. So we have tools in our hand, and if you can come and help to do field 1, then the rest of the things we'll see a church which is going to be reproducing churches.
Yeah.
So you are going to help us in giving a path to make a church reproducing churches.
So guys, are there any obstacles that you see to getting towards No Place Left as we look at our movement, and any words you'd like to speak towards that?
Well, when anything good is happening, the enemy is always active. And so, as we pursue this God-given vision, there will be obstacles that come where everybody wants to buy into this vision. But again, where we expect unity. And sometimes unity does not happen. We need to learn to even work in diversity to fulfill that common task. And that's going to happen only when there's great communication. Lack of communication between leaders, irrespective of which organization you work. If there's no communication, there's going to be, we talk about the stewardship again. Some fields will be left behind because there's not been much communication. Your yardstick and my yardstick for saying when it is engaged could be different. And we want to be in sync and speaking and having the same yardstick. What are some of the things that fulfills the criteria of being engaged? These are some things like people who have the same vision, irrespective of which denomination or organization you come in. We need to come in and be able to lay it out so that we do not put all our efforts in one field. We kind of spread out, and we don't have competition. And these kind of things, like the enemy can bring it as obstacles if we don't communicate. So communication is one thing. Another thing is whatever hidden agenda you may have as an organization, keep it aside so that we can fulfill this task. So I think to fulfill this No Place Left vision, as leaders, we need to come to a table where, just like we share the research data, We need to share even what does it take for it to come out of the UPG list.
Yeah.
That's one thing we need to share. We need to be able to say what are the resources available. And again, there needs to be a lot of communication in terms of where are you working, so that we do not fight over territory, or we do not, there is no differences among you're working with this leader, I'm working with this leader, or sometimes maybe you could be working with my same leader. And so these are some things that would come out only when there is communication. No Place Left has done a great job in trying to bring everybody in the same page, where you've like, we are all transparent in terms of when we have, okay, irrespective of the security reasons, we have come up and put ourselves into the No Place Left Facebook. Now you know where you're working, right? But other groups may still have the same vision, but they do not come up with where they're working. And that's when the problems could happen, where competition, duplication happens. The whole idea of that stewardship, where in some places some of the people groups have, just because you prayed for it, people have said it's engaged. It can never be engaged just because you prayed for it. So these are some things that we need to be like communicating, so that the obstacles do not come. Obstacles will come, but with a lot of communication and prayer, this can be like overcome.
Yeah.
And again, like when you talk about obstacles, the obstacles of the language barriers, it's a UUPG because their language has not been identified.
Right.
And people who are closest to them, like they look at it as a foreign language, right? And when they see, like example, the Bhakti people group, when they see another Bengali people group worshipping, for them that is very foreign to them because they cannot connect to that language group. And so the obstacles would be, okay, not having the Bible in their own heart language, either in writing or orally, right? That's the main thing. These are obstacles. And another thing would be like obstacles of people who are totally non-literate. They're just oral learners. And we as like people who go into that movement, right, where it's into that people group, we need to be trained ourselves. How do we communicate the gospel to a non-literate guy? That means we need to be very good storytellers.
As you look at the movie.
I think the only obstacles that we face is, as we already shared, the communications. I think the key leaders has to come in one table at least 6 months, at least in a year, every 6 months or every 4 months. If they can come up in a table so that they can share love, maybe like a retreat kind, and that will build a relationship stronger, and then we can pray, and then we can pursue again, because that's the only challenge that we face is lack of communications. Some of the ground levels field workers communications are not there, so we feel that how they break away from the kingdom of God. So this they get hurts also when we don't communicate. I think communication will play a greater role in NPL if everybody communicates. That's how the Facebook has been put up, NPL Facebook, and everybody communicates, right? That's one way of good way, but when it comes to a corporate level of companies working together, partnering together, they should have communications well enough. I would see that. And I want to put up something, NPL, the core issue is you are cross-pollinating from US to here. So whenever you want to do cross-pollinations, I will say that you need to communicate who are the people working with in that UUPG groups. I think they will be the best one to tell you what type of people they are and what are the sensitive to it. Because we also want that cultural relevance, All tools are best, and we don't rely on the tools because no best practice can reach people. It is God. So God has helped us in knowing the people. So if you guys wants to work in certain UUPG groups, I would encourage all the NPL guys to ask one another and see who works there and who are working with, and then communicate. And once you communicate, it's the one who is working is also encouraged because he will feel that he's not alone. There are people who are coming to help him.
Right.
So that is going to be a good help. And that will be a love building relationships in reaching the certain people's groups.
So how can we be praying for you guys?
Well, just continue to pray for us as we're in the middle of all the things that is happening, and the enemy does attack us physically, in terms of health. And so, and the other thing is the family. Sometimes we're so driven to the point sometimes we neglect our family. And so we need, as leaders, we need to balance that. And so just pray for us so that we can be really focused in the work and not be sidetracked. So that, again, the same passion that God has given to us, we'll be able to pass it on to our national leaders. And again, so that we will be able to even support our own families as we engage in the harvest field. We will be able to support our families also.
Sam, I would say that you guys really need to keep us in prayers. Our families, the children are in schools, and challenges are from all four corners. We get challenges from political also. We get challenges from community also. We also get challenges with the partners that we work with sometimes because of strategy, planning. That doesn't work because God clearly says, your plans are not my plans, your thoughts are not my thoughts. And it's always higher. God's plans are always higher than us. So sometimes that's also challenging for us sometimes when we try to adjust according to the field need.
Yeah.
We never like to give what we have, but we wanted to give what people need. And sometimes it becomes challenging for us. So I want people to pray and ask God to fulfill our needs and take care of our families, take care of our health.
And again,
we're both
the political scenario in India is really changing.
it's really changing.
They're becoming more violent. And then every system is trying to indoctrinate them into the Hindu faith. So we're facing a lot of that issues, not only in the communal tensions that we face, but also in schools now. People are trying to change the curriculum, inject the Hindu thoughts into these curriculums, and our children are being affected. So, and again, along with that comes the communal tensions, where anything with Christianity, they're being opposed now. And so our lives could be in danger the moment we get out from this house, because they know that we are the ones who are telling them the truth. And so, and again, not only us, but we have a lot of church planters, a lot of trainers in the field. Their lives are in danger every day. Every day we receive calls that such and such things has happened. And because of the, nowadays people are becoming more militant,
Mm.
and so like a lot of persecution is happening in the front lines.
Cool.
Yeah, so a lot of prayers needed, so that it's a time where like the Indian church is going through a phase where a lot of filtering is happening. Our faith is being tested on fire. And so like in the front lines, we represent a huge number of believers. So with that being said, we need a lot of prayers for God to protect us. And not only that, but we should be matured enough to be able to stand the test.